My topic is 3 reasons to go vegetarian or at least flexitarian until GMO crops are banned and or replaced. Why go veggie? Well, in general, there's a lot of reasons why it's a good idea to go vegetarian. Some of them include reducing the risk of heart disease, cancer prevention, losing excess weight, living longer, slow aging process, avoid toxic food contamination, reduce global warming. It makes economic sense, helps the world hunger problems, have compassion for animals, and enjoy the diverse, colorful, and delicious world of vegetarian cuisine. Just say no to GMOs. Most importantly, well, 3 most important reasons why to consider going veggie or at least become a flexitarian at minimum is item number 2, cancer prevention. Item number 1, reduce the risk of heart disease. And item number 2, avoid toxic food contaminants. Item number 1, cancer prevention. Regularly consuming a diet that contains fruits and vegetables is strongly associated with a reduced risk of some cancers. There is evidence that vegetarians tend to have a lower overall rate of cancer compared to the general population. Red meat and processed meat consumption is consistently associated with an increase in the risk of colorectal cancer. In fact, the rate of colon cancer is increased in beef eaters due to the fact that beef sits longer in your gut. And if you have that meat sitting in your gut for a long time with all that pesticide, you're more likely to receive a nice little dosage of the chemicals that cause cancer. A diet fed to animals is unnatural and unhealthy, filled with GMOs, pesticides, and unhealthy bacteria due to the antibiotics pumped into them. That in of itself, one reason to give up meat, or at minimum, stop over-consuming. At the same time, eat more roughage. Reason number 2, reduce the risk of heart disease. Vegetarian diets tend to be naturally lower in saturated and cholesterol fats and have a higher intake of people who have a higher intake of plant nutrients have been shown to have 25% lower risk of dying of heart disease than non-vegetarians. So that goes to say, just flat out, you get higher cholesterol amounts sitting in you for longer periods of time, because that's how long it takes meat to digest. You're less likely to build up cholesterol in your bloodstream. You add that to the GMO collection in your bloodstream, and your risk of heart disease drops. In addition to less stress put on your immune system. And finally, perspective 3, avoid toxic food contaminants. Flesh foods can harbor contaminants such as hormones, herbicides, and pesticides and antibiotics. As these toxins are all fatty soluble, they concentrate in the fatty flesh of the animals, not to mention the viruses, bacteria, and parasites such as salmonella, trichinella, and other worms, and toxoplasmosis parasites. So you're increasing your risk of pulling in all types of toxins when you eat animal flesh. And on top of it, your potential to rid your body of them decreases because you have animal flesh sitting in your gut that takes up to 3 days to push out, sometimes longer, depending on how much roughage and water and other healthy plants and whole grains you may be eating to help your body do what it does naturally. Perspective number 3, according to Jeffrey Smith from the Voices of Food Revelation, a GMO food supplement in the 1980s was responsible for the deaths of about 100 and also caused 10,000 or so to fall sick or become permanently disabled. So there was proof back then that there was problems with the use of pesticides in foods. It was well known, but still the FDA decided to override and go forward and allow this catastrophe to happen to our food until more attention is given to it, and the U.S. decides to follow suit with what other countries have done. Almost every other major country has decided to kick out Monsanto, the farmer who has been placing pesticides on our foods in various aspects, out permanently. Until we decide to do the same thing, it's probably not a bad idea to reduce our diet in meat intake to little to nothing so that we can survive without having to deal with cancer, heart disease, or deadly toxins overtaking our bodies. And in conclusion, it is probably not a bad idea to take a minimum amount of meat in, take a flexitarian or complete vegetarian approach if you don't plan on giving it up altogether. Due to the GMOs and the food industry insisting on going heavy on pesticides, it's probably not a bad idea to avoid them altogether if you can. With problems like these occurring, it's better to err in favor of caution than to keep eating something that we know, once held in our gut, we give it a chance to invite disease and illness into our bodies. Thank you and have a good night. Happy eating.